Good afternoon, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's the day of the wearing of the green. And as you can see, I am wearing my green proudly. And I hope you all are as well. Um, this is March 16th today, and the actual March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, is tomorrow. But I always like to do my videos like a couple of days early, and so that I have them ready, so that I can put them up, for that particular day. So everything is in order, and I'm ahead of the game instead of like I often can be, where I'm I'm running behind. And like, of course, ever since this time change has happened, um, I I am I'm terrible. It's the same every year. I keep thinking each year when daylight savings time begins that I'm going to be with it, and I'm going to be, accepting of it, and I'm going to be comfortable with it, and not have the feeling that I'm constantly running behind, and I need to, go faster to catch up. And I don't know if I'm the only one that seems to feel this way, or if there are other people that share the same feelings and experiences as I do. But you can leave a message below in the information area, or in the comment area, I should say. The information area is for me, and and but put a comment below, and let me know how y'all enjoy, if you enjoy the time change of going ahead an hour, and what you think the benefits of doing that really is. Um, I don't know when the time change actually began. Um, it's been around for eons and eons and eons of time, and if you hear an odd noise, gurgling noise in the background, it is my kitchen sink um, speaking up, because there's laundry going on, and the laundry room is right below the kitchen. And of course, the drains are intermingled, and so of course, when the washing machine is draining, the sink up here in the kitchen, or I should say down there in the kitchen, is gurgling. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, and wouldn't you know it, it would choose, um, while I'm doing the video here, to make racket and make a noise, and let me know what that the water is draining. And so anyway, back to the daylight savings time. I would be really interested to know how everybody perceives that, and how you get along with it. And as I had said, I don't know just for how long it's been it's been happening, but I mean, it was happening when I was a little girl, and so that is, a bit of time ago. And so I think it probably was started by, in the city, I think probably by doctors and lawyers and business people, professionals, that like to, when they get out of their office at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, whatever time they leave their office, um, that the time on the clock allows them to be able to go and, go to the golf course, or go and do whatever it is that maybe they've been thinking about doing all day, and and uh, and having daylight in order to do it. Um, I really don't think that it began with farmers, because my father was a farmer, and my grandfather before him. And I mean, just because the clock says a certain time um, it doesn't matter one way or the other. You're going to get the same amount of sun time or daylight, regardless of what the clock says. And of course, on a farm, chores begin very, very early in the morning, and 6 o'clock, sometimes even before. Dairy cattle oftentimes are being milked before 6 in the morning, and again probably around 6 or so in the evening. And but my father didn't. He wasn't a dairy farmer. He was a cash crop farmer, and he raised pigs. And so Dad didn't have to worry about milking cattle, and so we weren't locked into those hours that dairy farmers keep, but and not locked into 24/7 year round. And because cattle, if you have dairy cattle, um, they have to be milked twice a day, and every day. You can't, just because you want to go on a holiday or you want to go away or take a long weekend or whatever, you can't unless you've got somebody to be there to oversee the milking. And because, as I say, cows have to be milked twice a day, and they're not gonna hold their milk from not producing the milk, because if they're not milked, then they can become damaged. And so this is a commitment that is made by whomever decides to become a dairy farmer, that this is the way life is going to be. And if I want to go away, then I'm going to have somebody responsible that knows the business, can come in and look after things for me while I'm away for the period of time, usually a very short period of time, that they are away from their farm. And so, and with cash crop, I mean, the crops are growing regardless of whether you're there or you're not. But of course, so are the weeds, and and the parasites that seem to come along with it, that you have to keep under control, or you're not going to have any plants left. And I found that out because it was my job when I was a little girl. I had to help my mother take care of the garden. We grew a large garden every year, and and Dad would work the ground up in the spring for Mom to plant the garden. And then as the garden progressed to grow, it was up to Mom and I to look after it, and that meant hoeing and weeding, and making sure if there wasn't enough rain had come, that we had to water the garden. And so I mean, that was a 24/7 thing too. And but what you reap from it in the fall is well worth, and even long before the fall, as different things begin to come on, you harvest them. And my mom used to do tremendous amount of canning and everything. And so, and even though the work that involved, come wintertime, when the snow is blowing past your windows, you have the bounty canned in your basement of what you grew that spring and summer prior. And um, and so um, and what they couldn't can, they would dry, or they would salt down, um, or they would keep outside. I know Dad used to keep carrots outside, not far from the house, and he'd have a layer of he'd put straw down, and then he'd have a layer of carrots, and then he'd put another layer of straw on top of that, and then more carrots and straw on top of that. You get the idea. And And so you just, when you needed them, you would just go out and brush the straw away from, like, you'd go from the top down and brush the straw away and get however many you needed, and then until, throughout the winter, until the spring, till you used up what you had there. And and so, of course, the drawback to that was mice. It would attract, the straw would attract mice. So I had that to contend with. And but I have such great memories of those years, and the way it was. I looking back, I was very, very fortunate to have grown up where I did and experienced the things that I did, whereas a lot of kids, even at that time, not just kids in the city at that time, but even a lot of kids that lived in the country that didn't grow gardens or whatever, but although I don't know of many that didn't. And so that was just all part of living in the country. And I can remember thinking at the time, feeling like I was missing out on so much stuff, and living on my grandfather's farm on the end of a dead-end road, and and thinking, I'm never going to get out of here. I'm going to be stuck here for the rest of my life. I'm never going to experience anything. I'm never going to see anything. I'm never going to go anywhere. But I suppose typical things that kids think about, and but I'll tell you, looking back, I realize how fortunate I was, and I had a great life. I had a great family, and I had a great upbringing, and there's times I would give anything to be able to be back there in that old farmhouse on that farm. I would give so much to be there for even a day, even less, and to be able to just walk around. Before, my dad sold some acreage off, but the original farm acreage that my grandfather grew and my father took over and grew was 85 acres at the home, on the home farm, and then my father bought 35 more acres east, up the road on the east of where the grandpa's farm was, and actually right across the road from the schoolhouse where I went to school, and he grew that acreage there, and then he did rent land on both the Muncie and Oneida Indian reservations, and not a lot, but a few acres, and grew beans there. Dad primarily grew beans in the fields. I mean, the garden, it was everything in the garden, but the fields were mainly soybeans and white beans, and then Dad raised pigs. He had at one time he had I don't know how many pigs, and of course, me, the animal lover, I had pets made out of all these pigs. I had named them all, and the brood sows I was allowed to be around because they were quite docile. They really didn't bother unless they had just had a litter of little pigs, and they could be very protective of their babies, of course. And I was always told I was not to be around the boars, which were the male pigs, and because they were very, very unpredictable. You just didn't know what they were going to do. Dad raised both York and what's the other one? It just went right out of my head. It should come back. And the York boars, they had big tusks out the sides of their mouth, of their long snout, and out the sides of their mouth, and they were good for, always, if anybody walked around them, they always had a tendency to bring their head up against your leg or whatever with this big tusk, whichever side you were on, and they could just lay your leg wide open. And so I was always told I wasn't to go around them. And the other breed Daddy raised was, oh my dear, it's just gone out of my head again. It came back, Landrace. And there are so many different breeds of all kinds of animals, domestic animals, that are raised on farms, meat animals. The same with chickens and ducks and geese and so many different varieties, sheep, goats, and of course cattle, and definitely horses, and so my dad didn't raise horses. In fact, my grandfather kept horses, because back in my grandfather's day, when Grandpa worked his farm, he worked his farm with horses, and walking behind his horses, and but my dad was more modernized. He had a couple of tractors, and so we didn't keep horses. It was just my pony Pal, that my Shetland, that I had, and I used to go, the neighborhood. Some of the farms in the neighborhood grew tobacco, and this was back before the more modernization of the farms. But at that time, they used horses to pull what was called the boats, the tobacco boats, that the primers in the field, after they removed the leaves from the plant, they would put them in these long cylinder, like rectangular shaped, what they called boats. They were these containers, and they would lay the leaves in there, and then these, on the bottom of these containers, there were almost like skis that were underneath there, and they had an apparatus at the front that the horses that were wearing their harness came back and attached to. So there would be a primer that would, either ride on the horse, was one horse per boat, or lead the horse up to what is called the kill yard, where the tobacco leaves are processed onto these slats, both sides, and sent up a conveyor belt into the kill, which is the building where the process of curing, which is smoking them really at different temperatures through a certain period of time, until they were finished, until they were cured and ready then to be graded and set off to the tobacco factories to be made into cigarettes. And some were cigars. Some plants were for cigarettes. Some were for cigars. And so, of course, there were these horses, and they were Clydesdales. The majority of them were Clydesdales, light Clydesdales, not real heavy duty, and 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 of course, I would, a couple of my girlfriends, their fathers had horses, and so these horses, and so we would ride these horses, and had a great time. I can remember a lot of the things that we did, a lot of the things we shouldn't have been doing, because had these horses ever stumbled and had fallen, they could have broken their leg, and in return would mean the horse would have had to have been put down. And so, but we were obviously, you know, dear Lord was watching over us, because we never had a mishap with the horses. They were never hurt, and we were okay. We never fell. I came close to it one time, so close. I was riding. Her name was Dolly. Was a mare, and she was the one that I quite often would go and ask the owner if I could ride her, and he obviously trusted me. He knew me really well, and he obviously trusted me, because he would say, "Yeah, just, don't be running her hard, and then bring her back and make sure that she's not sweating, and bring her back, and that's fine." And so, but we did things, as they say, that we shouldn't have done. Looking back at the time, we didn't really think that there was anything wrong in what we were doing. But Clydesdales, any draft horse, is not built for jumping. They're not hunters. They're not, and they're not thoroughbreds that race, and they're not hunters and jumpers. But we would set up little jumps, maybe a foot high, in the path where we were going down in the fields, and these horses would jump it. They would jump over, and so we thought we were really doing it, and like we had a course set up like in a straight row, and Dolly would jump, and then she would run, not overly fast. She was quite smooth for her weight, and so she would slow gallop along, and I remember was riding her bareback. Like, we didn't have saddles or anything. I was just riding her bareback, and I don't even think she had a halter on. She may have, but no bridle, and so you just had a bridle. There's no bit in their mouth, so there's no way that the reins, depending on the direction you wanted to go, is the direction that you would move the rein against their neck for them to go toward. And so you just hang on to the mane, or push on the neck, and say, come on, Dolly, come this way, or whatever, and she would do it. And but I remember this one time I got sliding. I got off balance, and I got sliding, and I was going to the left, and I dug my right heel in as much as I could possibly hang on, because I was far enough down that I could see her legs running, and I figured, oh my, I'm gone. If I go down here, if I'm fortunate, I'll just roll. When I hit the ground, I'll roll away. But I could have very easily gone under her if I'd gone down all the way. And heaven only knows what would have happened, whether I would have got trampled, or whether, how badly I may have been hurt. I could have even possibly been killed, just depending, if one of those huge hooves ever hit me in the head. It's just hard to say. I definitely would have been unconscious, but that I never had to find that out, because it didn't happen. I managed to get her slowed down, and I just can remember that I kept hollering, whoa, Dolly, just stop, slow down, slow down. And she finally did. And by this time, I just let go. And I was like, on the ground type of thing. And as I say, obviously, a higher power was guiding me and Dolly at that particular time, because it could have, it could have been much, much worse. And worse would have been the fact of if Dolly had ever stumbled and fallen. That's hard to say how that would have ended up, but I never had to find out. And but I think back about those times, and they were, oh, I was so lucky, so fortunate to have been able to have experienced all the different things that I did, and maybe some people would think living in the country or living on a farm would be so boring or so mundane, repetitious, which repetitious is true, because you're doing the same things over and over and over, day after day after day. But that's the life on a farm, and you reap the benefits in the end, and if you're fortunate. And but looking back at that, as I've said now a couple of times, how fortunate I was, even though at the time I didn't see it, but I really and truly was. And I wish so much that, like my own two boys grew up on the farm for quite some time. Jamey was 17 when I moved away to Niagara, and Jason was 9. And so that's where they grew up to that point in time until I moved to Niagara. And but and they have, especially Jamey, he has great memories of it back there, and Jason to quite an extent. And so when we first came to Niagara, we lived on a fruit farm, not far out of Beamsville. And so it wasn't, the houses weren't all smushed together like so many are in the city. So at least it had open air to breathe a little bit out there. And it was nice. It wasn't far from the lake. And in fact, I could see the lake from our front door, and so that was always nice. That was Lake Ontario, and then we eventually moved into St. Catharines, and now that my grandchildren, with the exception of Sarah, are grown. Sarah's 13, so I mean she's not a little child anymore either. But Carson and Rick each have children, and how I wish that it was at the farm, and these kids could just run to their heart's content, and holler their head off without disturbing anybody, and do the things that Grams did and Gigi did when I was a little girl. And I think that would be just wonderful to if that could be that way. And they do get to experience country life, not farm life, but country life, because my eldest daughter-in-law's parents live on an enormous property up on the top of the escarpment here, and there's a lot of acreage, and it's just absolutely breathtaking, especially in the summertime. And the kids can go out and play and run and holler and experience to quite an extent what I've been talking about. So I'm very thankful for that. But there's so many times to be able to be back at Grandpa's farm would be a dream come true, really and truly. And who knows, but when none of us know what is ahead, and maybe in a way that's kind of good. I don't know. But I've reached the 30-minute mark, just over, so I'm soon going to bring this St. Patty's Day video to a close. I thought George would be coming to say hello. He was up here earlier, but he is not here now. And I am busy today with my interior to Return to Autumn Part 2. Dawn got it back today to me, and it's in PDF right now, and I'm going through it to see like if there's any mistakes and stuff like that before it goes through its next process to move on to becoming published, and I'm looking to publish it and bring it out next month, maybe mid-month. We'll see how things go, and so I keep you updated on that. Do watch for my different media sites, especially my official website, rusty-blackwood.com, and you can keep up to date with what's going on and when the book is going to be coming out. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Please like the video. Please comment it if you would. I don't know how many times I ask for comments, and I rarely get any, but that's not going to stop me from asking for them again. And share this video on if you would, and please continue to subscribe to my YouTube channel here. I'm very, very appreciative and thankful for the amount of followers that I have, but I'd like to always welcome more. You're always welcome. So God's blessings to each of you. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. My youngest son Jason was born on St. Patrick's Day, and tomorrow is his birthday. It is also my eldest son Jamey and his wife Corinne's 33rd anniversary, wedding anniversary. So I have some celebrating to do, and I'll be back soon with another video for y'all. And so until then, take care of yourselves. Stay well, stand strong, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.